I think that the critique of Bitcoin as sort of, being fringe technology accompanied by fringe politics and fringe characters, I don't know how you get fringe technology without fringe politics and fringe characters. You just have to go through a maturation process where you come out the other end and the fringe technology goes mainstream and gets widely adopted. Along the way, the fringe characters and the fringe politics tend to get alienated and then tend to move on to the next fringe technology, and the cycle repeats. But you don't get the new technologies from the mainstream. You get them from the fringe. And so I think this is a case study of that. Every single one of the kinds of things that you mentioned is an example of kind of how I think the early stages of this adoption cycle happen. So it would be really shocking if this kind of thing weren't happening. It would be very historically unusual if this kind of thing weren't happening.
Bitcoin is something where we think of it as potentially on the scale of the next internet. So as such, necessarily, it's going to occupy more and more of our time, and a lot of our portfolio companies can integrate it. So it's not like just one technology in one company. It's kind of cross-cutting. So that's kind of, we think of Bitcoin like mobile. It's not one company. It's something that is broad. But now you can write a program that doesn't just work with one person sending value from one person to another. It can be a P2P kind of thing. It can involve machines. It can involve non-humans. And you don't need the approval of a bank to do that. You can have a hobbyist doing it in their garage. So I think the barrier to entry to writing these kinds of programs, in theory you could do it, in theory you could always use a PayPal API and so on. In practice, it's going to be much easier to do with Bitcoin. For a protocol like this, something that is sending monetary value, the theory should work, but in practice it should also work. And so having like 4 years where people were bashing on it in different ways, I think was very important to seeing that it actually worked in the real world. People had a strong incentive to try various kinds of exploits. So far they haven't really gone too far, and that's a major sign of strength.
The new things just look weird and scary. And then, there's one idiot in, apparently in Noe Valley, as it turns out, with an online drug thing or something, and then it becomes this enormously attractive story. But the illicit stuff turns out, it's a very sexy story at the time. It turns out to not be a very big part of it. The exact same thing happened in the early 90s with the internet. There was, if you read the coverage from sort of 1991 to 1994, it was story after story after story of child porn and this, and you could buy drugs, and it was just like this horror show. For God's sake, you wouldn't want to let your teenager go in this crazy internet thing, because who knows what would happen. I mean, it was just an endless litany of all the social ills that were going to come out of it as people were getting used to the idea of something new. And then, by 1995, 1996, everybody went, oh, this is actually pretty cool.